Early reviews for Exorcist Believer are out already. The movie has been released internationally. Let's take a look at what people are saying about this movie. Jake Coyle from Associated Press writes, "If The Exorcist seemed to summon demons, the best The Exorcist Believer could do is to conjure tropes. Fingers claw, heads turn, bodies levitate. Once the film gets both possessed girls tied down in chairs back to back with a cobbled together team of spiritual defenders around them, Believer bogs down in a prolonged torture chamber of horror cliches. The Exorcist Believer never manages anything like the deep terror of the original, and the film's climatic scenes pass by with a lifeless predictability. Been there, exhumed that." Matthew Akosia writes, "Thankfully, Believer is not a rehash of its original predecessor, but more of an expansion of what the franchise can offer to a contemporary audience. The climax of Believer, an exorcism of the two girls, is set in a confined room, and while it may not work for everybody, the way it was handled in terms of cinematography was applaudable. It makes you feel like you're watching something big, even if you're just watching a few characters in the living room." Katie Walsh from Tribune News Service writes, "The Exorcist Believer is an exhausting affair, an unrelenting film that attempts to cover up its lack of shock and suspense with a kind of cinematic bludgeoning, a battering around the face and the head, delivering via smash cuts, jump scares, overlapping sound design, and chaotic camera work. There's not one but two possessed tweens this time. Grows tiresome almost immediately." What's the motivation for Exorcist Believer? Clearly it's the money, but this noisy effort isn't worth your attention. 2 out of 4 stars. Sydney writes, "It is at least trying to be an Exorcist movie in spirit, which I appreciate. It isn't afraid to take it slow and even dares to bring the themes into more diverse spiritual practices. On the flip side, it is only actually connecting itself to the franchise for like 10 minutes. The first act really hits hard on the horrors of missing children, especially girls, and some gnarly imagery at the end. The second half drops the ball, giving way to silly dialogue, rush pacing, questionable messaging, and a not so scary exorcism finale. 2 out of 4 stars. Peach VDB writes, "The first half of this movie actually worked for me despite the usual unlikable characters and bare bones. It features some creepy tension that slowly builds up. Unfortunately, that all goes nowhere in the second part, where they decide to throw everything to the viewer, but nothing sticks. There are interesting ideas that go nowhere by how badly they are executed." So it seems like a common thing that everyone's complaining about is starts off strong, but ends really weak. Are you guys excited to watch the movie? Let me know in the comments.